Hi, this is Nancy Fleischman. I live at Lakeside Park Estate that Trinity Broadcasting Network owns. As you know, there's a housing shortage. We can't find apartments. We need more compensation. So I just pray that you'll be able to help us out. Thank you very much. Yes, I told them.
Hello everyone, and thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Franz Böhm. I'm the director of Rock, Paper, Scissors, and I'm really happy that I'm able to speak today with Charlotte Cooley, the director of Last Days on Lake Trinity. Charlotte, do you want to introduce yourself and your film with maybe a few words?
Like Franz said, I'm the director of Last Days on Lake Trinity. It's a short documentary on The New Yorker, and it tells the story of three older women in a trailer park in South Florida that is shutting down. And what's strange and kind of interesting about this trailer park is that it was owned by the evangelical TV station Trinity Broadcasting Network, which is the largest Christian TV station in the world. And they shut down the park, and the residents had just a few months to find new homes.
Thanks, Charlotte, and it's really cool that we are able to speak with each other today. Obviously, both of us are shortlisted for the Academy Awards 2026, which is obviously a very, very exciting phase, and how cool that we are able to get to know each other during this stage. I've watched your film and I've very, very much enjoyed it. I think it's a very, very powerful piece, and I have a few questions for you. I think my first one is just a very basic one. Is just how did you come across this story in the first place? How did you hear about this in the first place? Because obviously it's such an urgent and very specific topic. So I was wondering about that.
Yeah, so I started pretty broad, and it took a little while to find this particular story. I knew that I wanted to make a documentary about a trailer park in crisis. 6% of Americans actually live in mobile homes, and historically this has been the largest source of affordable housing in this country. And it's disappearing, it's becoming unaffordable, or the land is being sold off. And so there's sort of a corner of our larger housing crisis. And I love documentaries that explore little worlds and kind of go deep somewhere. So I thought this would make for a really compelling documentary and started looking for a community that I could profile. And the first step was connecting with an activist who helps residents in parks like this advocate for themselves. And she was going to be traveling across Florida, where I had actually never been. I'd never set foot in Florida before this, visiting a number of different parks over the course of a few days. So I joined her and didn't know anything about any of the parks. This was the second park we visited on like the first morning, like by 12 o'clock on the first day. And I immediately said goodbye to her and canceled the rest of the trip, because when you drive into this park, it's sitting underneath this enormous TV tower, broadcasting tower, that is beaming TBN programming across South Florida. And learning that was just so strange, and I needed to know more. And then later that day, the residents were gathering. It was just my luck. The residents were gathering that evening to see if there was something they could do about their situation, because they had only recently learned about the eviction. So I was able to meet everybody sort of at once, introduce myself, and immediately I started falling in love with the very colorful people there. I met Nancy Sanderson first, who's the kind of beating heart of the film. She tapped me on the shoulder. She said, "Oh, come to my house. Yeah, come hang out with me." Then the next day, Nancy Fleischman flies by on her tricycle with her long white hair and her bright pink shirt. She's just larger than life. Lori, popping out of bushes, tried keeping an eye on us and eventually becoming part of the film. So these women really, I think the TBN story really drew my curiosity, but it was the women who became the main participants in the film that really grabbed my heart. And it kind of came full circle. I initially was interested in this larger story, this housing story, and then really narrowed down and was just compelled by three people and their circumstances. And really the phrase housing crisis cost of living crisis, like these things never came up. They're just in the background. And then it was in the edit that sort of realizing, oh, this is actually a film about an affordability crisis in this country and older people aging into that affordability crisis, and sort of a lack of care and compassion for those people. And the fact that the entity that was kicking them out to the curb is this Christian TV station, I think really allows the viewer to kind of think in moral terms and think about like what the right thing to do is, because that's what we expect of a Christian organization, as opposed to like what's legal or what does the contract say. You know, legally they can be kicked out, and their contract is, you know, for the year. They have this land lease for 1 year. But that's not how they thought about it. That's not what they expected of TBN. And I thought that was just so refreshing and powerful to kind of reframe things that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's done beautifully. How long did you shoot there, actually?
So it was over the course of 6 months. When we first arrived, they believed that the park was going to be closing in just a few months. So it was like, oh my gosh, we have to film right away. Like there's no time to raise money, credit card debt everywhere. Like we've just got to do this. Fortunately, they were able to extend the deadline, and it was 6 months at the end of the year. So we had 6 months, and I don't live in Florida, so it was kind of traveling back and forth from New York to Florida. But we would spend like at least a week a month there. It was me and my DP, Nick, who also became incredibly close with the women. And I think definitely spent more time not filming than we spent filming. A lot of the time sometimes I was there alone without a camera, or sometimes we would just put the camera down because it was frankly too hot to film. It was so hot in the summer. And just became close with the people there.
So cool. Have you worked with Nick before?
I had worked with Nick. Yes, I had worked with Nick, but on a large series where I was like a co-producer, and he was additional cinematography, but like neither of us had like a lead creative role on the project. So this was for both of us, I think, like a real first.
Really cool. Really cool.
We're working together. Like he's now just shot a feature together.
Oh really? Oh okay. That's very exciting. Very exciting. Yeah. Long-lasting collaboration. That's amazing.
Yeah,
nice.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Okay, so can I ask you a question now?
Amazing. Yeah, sure.
Well, I want to hear about who you worked with and how you brought this team together, because it's obviously a huge undertaking, an international, effort. How did that work, and where did you start?
That's a really good question. I think the first person to join the crew or the team or the project was quite obviously Ivan himself, who is sort of the main source of inspiration for this entire project. We've met in England. He was there as a teenager. He traveled he left Ukraine very, very shortly after everything that happened in the film, very shortly after the full-scale invasion in 2022. And we've met in the UK more or less by coincidence, more or less by chance, and connected and spoke, and I think formed a wonderful friendship and collaboration. I think it really started with me asking about the wound he had, or the massive scar he had on his leg, and I was fascinated by his lived story and his lived experience. And I was studying at the National Film and Television School at the time in Beaconsfield, which is a wonderful, wonderful place. And my graduation project was coming up. And the story felt very urgent, felt extremely politically relevant. And at the same time was very, very challenging to make, very challenging to create. A lot of logistical challenges, a lot of emotional and sort of ethical and moral challenges around the story, around the film. So I knew I had to work with obviously a really, really good, strong team. And I was able to gather a team around this story. I had worked with the DOP and the editor and the production designer and the producer and the composer before. So with a lot of the head of departments, I had conversations early on, and it was essentially their graduation project as well. So we got together, and I think one element that I really loved about the collaboration of the crew is that we had a lot of time to prepare. Because we sort of agreed to do this project together early on, we spent a lot of time testing things, watching films together, location scouting, discussing and speaking about how this film should feel, how it should sound like, what kind of, what role the music will play, what role the sound design will play. And for Ivan, he advised not only he co-wrote the screenplay together with me, but he devised all aspects of the production, essentially. He traveled back to Ukraine in the midst of the pre-production of this project, actually quite early on. For him, it was very important that we have an all-Ukrainian cast, that even the Russian soldiers are being played by Ukrainian actors. So we've spent a lot of time just looking for amazing Ukrainian talent, which actually there's a lot of in Europe and in Ukraine, obviously. And we had actors coming to us from all over the place. Some of them were already based in the UK, some of them were based in Germany, and a lot of them were obviously based in Ukraine. That's also how we've met Alexander Rudinsky. I had seen him, this is the lead actor, I had seen him in a couple of Ukrainian productions and was very, very impressed by his work and always really wanted to work with him. And I'm very glad that we were able to work together on this one. I'm really glad that our production team was able to bring him over from Ukraine for this shoot, and it was a wonderful collaboration with him.
Alexander is just incredible. And I wanted to ask you about the last shot of the film, which is so striking. It's just his face, and he's processing, I don't know if this is like a no spoiler situation, but he's processing the awful thing that he's just seen happen. And what I see in his face is just shock. Like, you kind of expect to see somebody scream and cry and grieve, but it's just this like profound shock. And it just felt like the perfect end to me, because it's like this waking up is what is happening. That's his arc over the course of like just 20 minutes in real time. He wakes up to the awful reality around him. How did you choose to end the film there, and how did you like direct him through those emotions?
Thanks very much. Yeah, thank you first of all for the kind words. That's very much appreciated. Obviously, working with Alexander was one of the most meaningful collaborations I've ever had. And he came over to England, and we spent quite a lot of time rehearsing and discussing each scene and discussing the character of Ivan and discussing the emotional beats, his motivations, his tactics that he is using, the bravery he has. And with each scene, I always try to establish like 5 different sort of sources for each actor in each scene. And this scene where he sees the bunker getting destroyed, I think when people watch our interviews, they'll probably hopefully have seen it. That is obviously a very challenging scene for him, because obviously he has no one to play with. It's just him, there's no dialogue. And we prepared for that quite long, discussed it quite long. And something that was very important for me is that we have a very performance-centered set, a safe space, essentially, where the performance of the cast members is at the center of everything that we're doing. I think that worked really, really well with Alexander. We had a lot of notes that we wanted to try out with this particular shot, this particular scene. And we were always very, very honest with each other. And I think we did like 2 or 3 takes only of this particular take. It was pretty clear. We obviously sort of staged it a few times, rehearsed it a few times. But with a scene like this, it's pretty clear that the amount of energy an actor can bring to the table like we have to be careful with that. We have to balance that out really strategically, and we couldn't ask him to do that same take or that same shot 7 or 8 times. That would have been, wouldn't have been good. It was quite late during the shoot, so he knew that we were trying to work as precise as anyhow possible. And I think actually the take that we've ended up using is actually the first take of that particular shot, which I'm really, really, really happy about. I will say that to sing Alexander's praises here, he brought an incredible level of commitment and energy and spirit and ideas to the project. He inspired the entire team with his energy and with his professionalism. And we've worked together incredibly well. I mean, I hope that he would say the same thing. But we just always knew what each of us wanted. And we were able to try a few things out during some of the takes, during some of the shots. So it was just a really, really wonderful collaboration with him.
Yeah. Well, the result is just so effective. And to watch a war film when the war is still going on, like it hits different. It's really stunning.
Thank you very much. That really means a lot. When it comes to when we speak about directing and when we speak about the people in front of the camera, Nancy, Laurie, and Nancy. I think your film gives such a complex and empathetic and well done portrait of all three of them, and I think they come across not just like as victims of forced displacement, but just as human beings and as full and complex individuals. You said you were shooting with them for 6 months. How was the process of building the trust with them, and how did you get there?
Yeah, I think there were a few things that helped us out. First, having a very small team, so just me and Nick every time they, it's not like they're not a lot of people coming in. I quickly developed a lot of trust with Nick. So I find it's very important to not, when filming a documentary, to not do the work in front of the participants. I don't want to be saying, "Oh, Nick, did you get the shot? Did you make sure you get the cutaway?" If they feel that stress and realize that we need something out of this and it has to be something, then there's a right way to do it and there's a right answer to the question, and people become very, very stressed. So that, I think early on, I didn't know that lesson because this was new really a first for both me and Nick. And, but we learned it very quickly, and that made a big difference. There was also just all the time we spent together without the camera that I think built trust. I think the fact that it was just 3 years ago, we're still young, but we were particularly young then. I think they kind of thought oh, this is a student film. What, what is this? Why you want to be here? We don't know, but, sure. But even with all of those things, it was with each of the different women, kind of having to learn, what does Laurie want? What is she afraid of? What makes her nervous? How does Laurie work and think? And then working with her. So Laurie is very fiercely independent, and yet she is loves people and wants to be around people. And so there's always this kind of push and pull where she'll sort of push you away, but sort of so realizing not to let Laurie push us away. She would push us away, but if we were still there when she turned back, that meant something to her, that we weren't scared off by one grumpy morning or something. Nancy Fleischman, I think it was just about keeping on coming back. I think Nancy had a lot of concerns about Nancy had a lot of concerns about how we would treat the TBN issue. This woman had worked for this Christian TV station on and off for decades, and she had a very complicated relationship with the station. And I think for her, realizing that like I had real curiosity about her feelings for TBN and wanted to hear her articulate that, as opposed to just coming in and be like, of course you must hate them, was to realize she had the space to kind of explore that, I think, created trust. And Nancy Sanderson, just a sweetheart, you know. I think with her it was just being a friend, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And are you still in contact with all three of them?
Yes. So Nancy Fleischman and Lori landed on their feet. They're okay. They're still in South Florida, and I visited them a couple of times since we stopped filming. The first time I visited them was just a year after the park had closed, and they were definitely still adjusting. But the last time I saw them, which was just a couple of months ago, I felt like they'd really adjusted and are doing better. Nancy Sanderson moved to a assisted living facility in Pennsylvania, so I've seen her more because it's easier for me. I can just rent a car and drive down there. When she first moved there, I talked to her on the phone like every day. She would just call me, and her memory was starting to kind of decline, so we would just kind of have the same conversation every day, and I would just tell her like whatever, you know, like this date I went on, you know, just chatting, which was really fun and sweet. Her cell phone plan lapsed and didn't get renewed, so she doesn't have a phone now. So it's harder to be in touch without. I can go visit her, and I owe her a visit because it's been a little while. But I do keep in touch with her her niece and her sister. So I know that she's okay.
That's really nice. That's really, really nice. That's, I think, I have a lot of respect for the work that documentary directors like yourself are doing, because it feels like, you know, for us, for the audience, I think it's an amazing piece, and it's wonderful to see, and obviously I personally learned a lot. But I think there's this huge human element to it, isn't there, where because you've been spending so much time with them, obviously they form the relationship with you, and I think what you're doing there is almost like aftercare in a really good way. So I'm very, very impressed by that.
Yeah, I think some people have a belief that you shouldn't get too close with your participants. And I see the concerns there, and I think in the case of some films it's very important, but with this film it did not feel important. I didn't see any problem getting close. Yeah.
What were their reactions when they first saw the film?
Nancy Fleischman and Lori just laughed, which was amazing. I thought, oh no, you know, I was really worried. I was nervous because it's like reliving this terrible period of time. And for anybody seeing themselves on screen is going to be tricky. I think enough time had passed by the time they saw it that it was not so fresh, and maybe they didn't quite. I was worried it would be like, well, you didn't use the part where I said this, like, but they just laughed and really loved it. Obviously they had thoughts, and we talked a lot about it. But I was really relieved and reminded, of course, these are super resilient people. They're not like, it wasn't as challenging as I thought it might be. Nancy Sanderson has not seen the film because her memory has declined. I've just judged that it would not, it doesn't feel right to me. I think it would be really, really a jarring thing just to watch a film that you maybe don't fully remember participating in. But what I did do is print out images from the filming and bring them to her and kind of put them up around her room and reminisce that way. Remember this person, and that was very sweet.
That's a wonderful way, actually, of doing that. Yeah, really, really, really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, miss them. So what's next for you?
I've wrapped filming my debut fictional feature roughly a month ago. So we're knee deep in post-production at the moment. It's a really, really exciting film. It's a political thriller, true story-based political thriller about two investigative journalists, or about two incredibly brave women that were basically the first ones to discover these horrible concentration camps in Western China, in Xinjiang. We're knee deep in post-production at the moment. We had a wonderful, wonderful team that we've worked with, and a wonderful cast, and are in the edit at the moment. And it's very exciting to see the film taking shape.
That's amazing. I'm very impressed. You've clearly been very busy.
Thank you very much. Well, Charlotte, thank you very much for the conversation. I'm wishing you all the very best for the future of your film. All the best of luck for the next few weeks and months. And people are able to watch your film just on the New Yorker YouTube channel, right?
Yeah, it's on the New Yorker YouTube channel.
Great. Thanks very much for your time. And hopefully we get to connect in person real soon.
Totally. This was such a pleasure, and I can't wait to see your next film.
Thanks so much.